Champaign County Agriculture Today with your host, Dennis Riggs.
Hello and welcome to Champaign County Agriculture Today. I'm your host, Dennis Riggs, and we're glad you tuned in because today we have a very interesting program for you. Many times we talk about pure agriculture on this program, and today we are, but with more of a twist of something that might be just outside your front door. Possibly a garden, possibly a flower bed. We're going to talk about horticulture here on the program today. And with me to do that are great guests because they have a lot of knowledge about the subject. We have with us today Bill Malone, and Bill is the landscape design and build manager for Greenview. And Bill, we're glad to have you with us today. Thank you very much. And we're also honored to have Teresa Mears. Excuse me, I didn't get the E's right in there. Teresa is horticulture instructor and greenhouse manager at Parkland College, where some great things are happening. We're going to be glad to talk about that in just a second. And Teresa, let's just start with you. Give me a little bit of your background and what brought you to this point with Parkland College.
Well, I have to say that actually back like when I was in high school, I had no idea what the word horticulture even was. I was a traditional ag person. I knew what corn and soybeans were. Then I came up here to U of I to go to school and got a bachelor's in soil science, and then got a job later on full-time in the greenhouses at U of I. Spent 16 years at U of I in the greenhouses, and hence got a master's. I helped develop the greenhouse they have at Parkland and got it established, and when they finally did that, they were able to branch out and offer a new position, and that's when I came over to Parkland. So I've only been over there a year now for a full-time position, but I've been over there 5 semesters prior to that part-time. So
you manage the greenhouse as well as instruct. I understand. Very good. Yes. Well, thanks for being with us today. Bill, as a landscape design and builder, you must be getting into a lot of things. Give us your background and what brought you to this point with Greenview.
Well, I grew up in a unique situation on a farm that was right next door to a greenhouse. So I got agriculture from both ends, I guess you'd say. The people next door to us had a family-owned greenhouse and florist shop, and so I got to help transplant the flowers and probably mess up the labels on all the plants when I was a little kid. So I got to learn a lot about horticulture from as a child and the farming, because we had the farm also. So that was where I got started. Came down to U of I and was actually an engineering student for a while and realized that wasn't my calling and got into the ag program in ornamental horticulture, which is where I ended up getting my degree, and then I've worked in the industry ever since.
Very good. Well, thanks for being with us today. Well, Teresa, since you're the instructor at the moment, we're going to ask you to define horticulture as a word or as an industry, however you want to do it, and then also give me your spin. Is it a part of agriculture?
Well, just the basic pure sense of the word, it's cultivated gardening is what horticulture in the Greek form means, in their Latin form. So anything that you're cultivating as a garden or growing can fall under horticulture. So we're not using it as much for the edible portion, but the fruit and vegetables I think now is falling more under that area too. And horticulture is the up and coming area of the industry. We now are actually terming it the green industry to encompass everything from the garden centers to the production to the landscape industry, nursery, hardscapes. It's all coming under the golf courses is all coming under that heading. And in 2002, which is the numbers I have, it was a $147.8 billion industry nationwide, and Illinois falls in the top 4 or 5 every year.
Well, it sounds like a big, not only is it an industry, but it's a big industry as well.
And it's the growing one. It's the one that's still growing.
Bill, and of course you take it then from the students that graduate and the people that learn the basics and turn it into a true industry. How do you see horticulture as a definition and as an industry?
Well, it is broad, and obviously I see a fairly narrow slice of it in the job I do now, but we touch on so many different things between the fertilizer arena and all the people that are producing that, and the people who produce all the mechanized equipment for us. You've got sod production in our own company. We have tree production in our company. We have container production, which would be the shrubbery and roses. And then you've got the annuals and perennials, which are the smaller plants. So there's a lot there. And then you have the design side, design of landscape, and the installation. And then you've got the whole maintenance part. So even within my small slice, I guess you'd say, there's a ton of different parts.
We've got some great pictures we're going to look at in just a moment about those various aspects of your
Right.
business. But let's talk about the interest in the industry. And of course, it all starts with a good education. Teresa, tell me, what type of perfect student would you look for, or maybe just any student that was interested in this field?
I don't think there's a perfect student. There's trying to find the perfect match within the industry for the student, because there's students that enjoy the growing aspect of the plants, actually physically watching them develop. There's students that can talk about the sales and the installation and design aspect. I have a couple students right now that want nothing to do with anything but hardscape. They want to build walls, sidewalks, put in decks and patios. They like building, but they want to build in a horticulture side, not a house. So it just gets broader and broader, and as long as they have an interest to be somewhat outdoor, creative, enjoy plants, there's a place for a lot of people.
I hear the word hardscape, which is a little bit different than landscape. Bill, what's your definition of that?
Well, that's a big part of what we do. We consider ourselves really a construction company in many ways, because we are building outdoors. And that's the only difference, is that instead of building, putting in floors and windows and walls, we're building outdoor walls and creating spaces outdoor for people to live. And so we're extending the home into nature and into the outdoors, which is a lot of fun. And I can't tell you how many people that come and want to work, and the reason they want to be in our business is, I want to be outdoors. That's really the big thing. They really want to be outdoors.
Well, speaking of building things, there's been an exciting building project going on out at Parkland College, and that's been the new greenhouse whole complex out there. We have a picture. Now, I'm going to tell people that it's a little fuzzy, so don't adjust your set right now. The picture's a little fuzzy, but we're going to bring it up here. And Teresa, if you would give us a quick idea. Of course, it's better in person. You invite people to come out in
Yes.
person. Tell us what we're looking at here.
We have 2 greenhouse bays. They're 30 by 70 feet each bay that are connected by a central corridor. But within the bays, we have 4 different growing zones, so we can grow plants in 4 different climates. Different temperature, different humidity, different light levels, whatever we need for those particular plants. And it's roughly 5,000 square feet of growing space we have. And it's just a beautiful modern facility with lots of automation and lots of bells and whistles, so you can learn the high end and then take that on and incorporate it on any level.
Does the Department of Horticulture at Parkland extend beyond the greenhouses, or is it all inside the greenhouse?
Oh no, our basically we have a landscape design degree program as our main program, and within that we're starting to break off into various areas. We have horticulture, we have turf grass option, which we have some turf. And then we have a floral design certificate, which is the art of designing flower arranging that's just coming on. Plus we do greenhouse management / garden center is one of the areas we're growing into. So we do outdoor project with our construction class and indoor growing with the greenhouse.
You brought some examples here, and the first one is the floral design, which is absolutely beautiful. Show us the next one in progression there. What would you like to talk about?
Floral design, and then this is an example of a woody plant propagation. That was just a cutting we took off of an arborvitae tree last fall in class, and we rooted it and grew it. And this is not even a year old yet, this plant. So another year or so, it might be small enough that or large enough that we could put it out and actually grow it on. And so that's something I'll teach the students, is how to propagate any type of plant. I have fresh picked tomatoes this morning.
I have a knife. Could we check into that?
Yes, you may.
Maybe after the program we'll
Yes.
look into that.
But so I do the vegetable production as well. We have a turf grass program where we do advanced and beginning turf grass, and this is just an example of one of the grasses the students grew, and it was a bent grass, which is your typical golf course grass, which most people don't always get to see. They walk on it, but they don't realize much about it. It's a little higher maintenance grass, but we have just established some turf plots at Parkland with some bent grass, zoysia grass, Kentucky bluegrass, Bermuda grass, ryegrasses, so people can come out and we'll be able to see some of the differences and learn more about this.
Well, great examples of some different areas of horticulture that we may not think about. Well, Bill, let's turn to you for just a second, and let's talk about, we have some nice slides that we're going to bring up to kind of take us through the progress of taking a project from conception to the finished product. So let's go to slide number 1 to get started here, and we're talking about design. Take us through these slides here.
Well, landscape design is really the heart of what I do, because it's the starting point from which we take all the work is generated. I think the first picture is actually of a Parkland College graduate in design, Victoria Robinson, and she does a lot of the work for me. We have 2 designers on staff. The beginning of the whole process is meeting with a client, and the needs determination is what we call it, and we'll sit down and talk with people about all the things that they want out of their space. And their space could be a tiny little backyard, or it could be, you know, a huge area. Like this is a little bigger. An example of one of our finished designs. And so after we gather all that information, then we go out, we measure the property, we do a site assessment, figuring out what the soils are like, there you go, right there. We got a couple of guys out there talking about it. You look for things that are in the way or that need to be screened. I think there's a couple of buildings in the back there we'd like to hide, telephone poles, and maybe they want a playground involved. Plants are a huge part of this, but it's the whole use of the site that we're looking at.
Let's take a look at our next slide here, and it looks like they're measuring out there.
Yep. Yeah, you got to draw a little sketch of the whole place and get your little wheel out and measure everything out.
Because it's fine-tuned. It's exactly to the dimensions of the lot or the acreage or the project that you have in mind.
They're all custom. And when we're all done, we have that design. We send our crews out, and they use those as their blueprint, and they are basically blueprints, although we use a special copier now. We finally got rid of our old blueprint machine. And they go out and they set the plants where the designers have placed them. They do some site adjustments. And that's the planting side of it. And I think we have some more here. We're a little out of order here. Those are maintenance pictures here, so they would come a little bit later on after we've got established. But this is an example of a plant that had totally overgrown in front of someone's house. And I think
a design gone bad, possibly.
A design that, that plant was a little big for that spot. There we go. We pruned it up a bit for him so you could actually see the front door again. And some of our guys that do the maintenance there also ride on a mower. Here's an example of a finished that we did out in Urbana. It was a special garden called I think the Goddess of, I've forgotten the exact name of it. That's actually Kaizad's design from
a Parkland College student. Very good.
Well, he's the professor in the head of the department.
Okay.
He did that design a few years back. And there's a finished design also, one that's been installed. You notice a lot of it has to do also with hardscape, and the hardscape would be things like steps and walkways and fencing and perhaps an arbor, a pond, all kinds of things are encompassed into that whole process.
Well, I think our viewers have seen from these slides that it's not just planting a tree.
No.
It's a whole construction project, and I think that's very interesting. What type of opportunities are there out there for, and Teresa, I'll ask you because you probably keep an eye on that, for people interested in the various aspects of horticulture?
Well, some of our students do go to Greenview and get involved in the installation and a little bit of design work and even just working in the retail aspect of it. But the interesting thing is a lot of our students to finish their degree are required to have 2 internships. One is 150 hours and the second one is 300 hours. So that gets them out in the field and they can at least try maybe 2 things if they're not sure. But you can do anything from the floral design to the sod production to the design work to the work in the retail, work in the nursery centers, just getting into the greenhouse facilities. And actually if somebody has some of that computer background or wants to, most every place anymore has a website. You guys have a website,
yes,
everybody has one, and it's really kind of nice. The websites, you can tell where they have somebody that knows plant material. Actually using the site, you know the difference. It makes a huge difference. So if you don't want to be or can't be outdoors and can't be doing that, you can still be in the industry, you can still be in the field.
In your studies and your different degrees, how many different degrees does Parkland offer, or are there variations of a degree?
We offer the landscape and horticulture, degree, and within that you can kind of customize it and be either more turf grass, greenhouse, or landscape. And we're trying to broaden those out a little more as we find more demand. And then the newest thing is just the floral design is a certificate, so it's only a 1-year program, so you can come in and just start working at a florist then after that.
Bill, when you look for an employee out at Greenview, does someone that's been through a program like this, what talents do they bring that maybe just hiring someone fresh that you have to train, what's the difference?
Well, horticulture knowledge is extremely important, because even though we may be doing hardscape, the same guy that's putting those bricks down is going to be planting the plants. So I want to make sure that they understand enough about plant material that they don't make mistakes and cause problems down the road. And we do in-house training also. We have a once-a-week training program for our people. We meet on Thursday mornings. And part of it is safety training, because we don't want our people to get hurt, but we also do horticultural training. Mm-hmm. And for instance, last week's topic was plant spacing, because it's one of my pet peeves, is that things get planted too close together, too close to the house, too close to the sidewalk, like that tree we saw a little earlier that was overgrowing the sidewalk. And so I teach them that no matter what I've got on the paper, we make mistakes sometimes, and you can't always tell from looking at it. And so when they get to the job site, don't plant that yew 1.5 feet from the sidewalk, because 3 years later the client's not going to be able to get up to their front door. Mm-hmm. And if they've been through a course at Parkland or at U of I or any other school around here that teaches this stuff, it really helps. And we encourage our people to take these classes, I know they have a lot of evening classes, and we actually help them with their tuition if they're employed by us. So we encourage that education level.
Teresa, I'm kind of an old guy, but not real old, and I can remember going to Parkland when these programs did not even exist.
They're relatively new.
They're basically new. Where does the information come? Is it industry-based, research-based? The teaching materials that you have, are they very new and fresh off the press?
We try to stay as current as we can and always keep teaching what the nurseries are selling, what the industry is selling when it comes to our plant ID courses, because I have a herbaceous class, which is all your annuals, perennials, and I'll talk a few bulbs and grasses. And then we have a woody plant class, and that's all your trees and shrubs, any of the stuff that doesn't die back. And so I teach all the general basic ones, and then I try to take them out on field trips to actually see some of the material, go to nurseries to see what's current and new. In the design aspect, I know Kaizad's doing designs around the Parkland all the time. He's my other instructor I work with, and he's trying to get the newest product, the newest stone, the newest type of granite or whatever's out there. So we try to show students as much that is there current and available.
Give me a student story, and I'm going to qualify that. I know a lot of people that had no interest in something like this at all, and then they kind of got into it, maybe just a little flower garden by their front door, or maybe a flower pot even inside, and then they just went crazy. Give me some stories how that has happened.
Well, actually, we have a set of twin boys they're from Farmer City area, but the one twin is in our program. His brother is in the computer program, because he just wasn't going to do what the family did, because the family has a small business, and the boys all work together and work in it somewhat. As the year has gone on and there's been more hands-on opportunities, the brother keeps coming, the other twin keeps coming, and we are this close to getting him over into the program. But like I said, he's one of those that's going to have the computer skills to take him even further that some of these might not, or get into the sales or something. But it's interesting how once they start to see something, and I had students that were growing plants. We did poinsettias last fall. These students never had grown a poinsettia. Oh my gosh, now they want to do nothing but greenhouse work. They don't want to do design work anymore. They want to do production work. So once you get their hands dirty, once you show them something, they're hooked, some of them.
It's like a lot of the students we hear that they get started in one direction, but it sounds like your program has the flexibility that they can actually move over into their area of interest.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the consumer then, Bill. It used to be maybe there wasn't a demand for, your sign was out front and it was in 2 concrete posts and you mowed around it. Is there a change? I see a lot more beautiful signs out there.
I think the whole world is trying to make itself look better. We're really wanting to be surrounded by nature in a way that I don't know. I think we're less practical, maybe in some sense. People were so practical in the old days because they had to make a living, and that's all they had time for, and they didn't have time for making the world look a little better. And we're a little bit non-essential in some ways. You can get away without a lot of it. Shade trees and so forth are absolutely necessary, and they cool our world and so forth. But people have always wanted gardens. This is nothing new. I mean, you can go back to Greek society and Roman society, and even back in Mexico in the old days, they had the hanging gardens and so forth. So people have always had a desire to make their world more beautiful, and that's really what landscaping is all about. And I think people are getting more outdoors. They're so fed up with being inside all the time that they want to expand out and live in their yards, and that's what we help create. And there's just so many different ways of doing that. The other big switch is, and I think this is not just in our industry, but in so many industries, is service. Service is huge. I mean, there was a time in Champaign-Urbana, there weren't that many lawn maintenance firms. Now everybody has a pickup truck and a lawn maintenance firm. Nobody wants to do the lawn cutting and the maintenance themselves, so there's a lot of companies out there working to do that for people, and I think that's a huge change.
Have you seen some people that have adopted this as a hobby?
Oh yes, and hobby gardening is big. It was huge in the 70s. I remember it was a huge influx. Even when I was at the U of I, it went from like 40-some students when I enrolled up to 100 by the time I graduated. So it became very interesting. And then it kind of tailed off a little bit for a while. Now there's a huge surge again with people wanting to improve their yards.
Teresa, tell me about the greenhouse, and if I was a student out at Parkland, lead me through a day of how I might utilize that resource. I mean, is this summer, winter, fall, all the time?
I have it available all the time, and every class I teach, with the exception of my computer class, every class I teach, we have used the greenhouse. We'll have, if it's a lab class, the lab is out in the greenhouse if we're not out somewhere else seeing something we don't have there. Or if it's my greenhouse production class, it's a 2-hour class twice a week. We'll spend the first hour or the last hour, depending on how it's working, in the greenhouse physically making pH measurements, doing fertilizer calculations and mixing, transplanting plants, making propagations, whatever we're talking about at the time. Sometimes it's just busy seeing features of the plants. If it's my ID classes, we're just out there looking at the plants, looking at characteristics, feeling them, touching them, smelling them. Sometimes all your senses are involved. You can remember a plant so much better. And it's so hard just to learn strictly off of a slide or a picture without seeing it.
That leads me to a follow-up question. A student that has not had any background, say they've grown up in town or in a family that had no gardening experience whatsoever, can they still get excited about growing things?
Oh yeah, and it doesn't matter what background you have. I can get you, if you have at least a little bit of spark, I can keep you going and find the niche you like. But oh yeah, I have a lot of students that really don't have a good background in it, and they just heard about something or their friends in the class, and so they come along. And what's another thing is all these hobby people, I have a lot of older students coming back that have been doing it as a hobby. Well, now they're retired or they got quit work for some reason and could do something else, and they're coming back doing a second career, and they were taking the landscape classes so they can do a little bit of landscape or just learn more about it. And some people just want to learn more about it as a hobby. And we do a lot of live and learn type classes where people can come in for workshops on evenings or Saturdays, and we'll pick a specific topic like tree pruning or container gardening and give them all the information in a short term.
There you go. Well, if it's not a hobby, if it's the real thing and you're looking for a real job, Bill, give me a little bit of an idea of what type of jobs in your industry, not just at your location, but industry-wide that are available. Maybe is it a good paying job, or are there entry-level positions? What's out there for the student?
Well, I think that's there's a misconception about our industry that it's all menial labor, and there is a lot of that. So that's a great starting point, but it's not all low paid. Our skilled installers are very well paid, and they have full benefits and the whole bit. So I mean, it beats working at McDonald's. Let's put it that way. And beyond that, I mean, you have managers throughout the system, and you have sales staff, and you have, like you said, web designers, and the whole ball of wax. So in retail, you've got managers, department managers, and they have to know what they're talking about. And in fact, people that want to learn about the industry, what I tell them is get a job in a garden center. Because if you get a job in a garden center, you're going to get asked every question you'll ever get on a test, and then some. And if you don't know how to answer it, you go to someone who does, and that's how you're going to learn. And that I probably learned more that way than I ever did in school, because I probably was sleeping in school or whatever. But, you know, I was never famous for being a great student, but the best way to learn is through touching and feeling and so forth, like Teresa said. As far as other jobs, I mean, golf course superintendents, you know, those are great jobs. They all involve management. So I recommend anybody that wants to go places in any industry get a little business background too, because that's helpful in management. Keeping your driving record clean, which I know that sounds silly, but half the people are rejected right now because they have DUIs. It's amazing how many people don't follow those rules. And getting a good background of any sort in horticulture, whether it's even a guy that comes to us out of turf management, knows the basics of how a plant will grow and can learn the rest much quicker. So you can adapt by moving sideways within the industry too.
A question that might come to mind to our viewers, it's obvious to see all the work being done in the summertime, spring or fall, maintenance and such. What about the winter?
Well, winters are unique here, let's put it that way. We do snow removal and we do design work. We have a lot of work that's done by our design staff in the wintertime. It seems that a lot of people are smart enough to come and see us at the right time of year when we're not so busy, and that way we can give them a little more of our attention. And then there's a lot of commercial work that's bid during the wintertime. Our crews are usually laid off, which by the time December gets here, they're ready. They've been working long hours. We do put in long hours during the season, and then we call them back in for snow removal when we can, and we get started as early in the season as we can, then March or whatever.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's
Teresa.
one other area too that people don't think about in the wintertime is their tree pruning. A lot of tree pruning happens March, February, even when the weather's still good enough to get out, because the skeleton of the tree makes it very easy to clean it up and work with it. So there are some areas that people can go back and forth and bounce between.
And even though the hard work may not happen in the wintertime, the education goes on forever. What would you say people could start in their programs at about any time?
Oh, anytime. We have classes year-round. There's only one hort class in the summertime. It's our woody plant ID class, but we have classes fall and spring. We have some 16-week courses. We have some 8-week courses. So it just varies. Just get a catalog, look online. We have many courses.
In just a few seconds we have left, what's that website they can go to?
www.parkland.edu.
And then follow the leads from there. Bill, for your company, to find out more what you do?
It's www.greenview.net.
Greenview.net. Okay. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today and exploring this interesting field of horticulture, which is basically new, but we've had flowers around East Central Illinois for a long, long time. And we want to thank you for listening, because without you there, our information would go unheeded, and I think you've all learned something today. So we hope you tune in again next time when once again we have a chance to tell you what's going on here at Champaign County Agriculture Today. Until then, I'm Dennis Riggs. Thanks for listening.
Champaign County Agriculture Today is brought to you by Champaign County Farm Bureau.